Justine, just to give you a little preface on who I am and everything. My name is Jessie Hobson. I write for a website called CineDump.com. We do interviews, reviews, kind of everything in between. We've interviewed actors, wrestlers, anything you can think of as far as entertainment. And today, you guys are my topic of concentration. Spilled paint. Before we begin, do you have any questions or anything you want to throw out there?
Nah.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna throw some general questions to both you guys, and then from that we can kind of go from there. I will say that I did watch the series, so I always try to like be prepared as possible for these types of things. I don't like going in blind, just because I want. Also, it's kind of a respect thing in all reality. Like if you're going to like do the work, I want to watch the work. So and I have to commend both you guys. Your work was fantastic. So keeping that in mind, what drew you to the story of Spilled Paint originally? I know Brandon, you kind of are a little bit behind and in front of the camera, but Justine, what's your case? And then maybe we can jump over to Brandon as far as that question goes.
Yeah, sure. So like what drew me actually was originally it was a short film um that was being filmed in Orlando, Florida, and I got cast in that role and then they decided to turn it into a pilot. And from there, Beth wanted to get Brandon on board to direct, which was really awesome. I liked working with you, Brandon. And I feel like that took it to another level. And then from there, it got picked up by a distributor that was interested in distributing it specifically on Tubi. So then from there, Brandon wrote an amazing script and like took my character into like some crazy ass directions that was really fun for me to work on. So yeah.
Brandon, what about you? Like early on, what was it that kind of got you involved in, and you know, what is it that drew you to this crazy story, man?
Well, initially Beth came to me and she wanted me to, like Justine said, she wanted me to direct the pilot, and I got a hold of the script and looked at it and said, "Do you guys have any? Have you punched it up yet? Do you have any script doctors?" And they at that point had not. And I said, "All right, well, do you mind if I doctor it up a little bit?" So, I mean, when you want to guarantee yourself some work, it's best to write yourself in. And not that I necessarily had that in mind, but as I'm writing it, as I'm sort of developing Ramirez Ponce, I'm like, dude, this could be awesome to play. He'd be fun to play. And long story short, we got it all done, and I asked Beth if I could play Ramirez, and she said, yeah, absolutely, why not? And so we went and shot the pilot, and off to the races we go.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, this show, it's inspired by true events. And it sounds like you had obviously a lot of creative freedom, especially, touching up the script. How closely did you guys stick to the source material once you guys were on set?
Well, it's kind of interesting. So that story, I was visiting Justine and Beth, and we started talking about the show and started talking about sort of the how we could really dig in and make it more meaty. And we stumbled upon this story about a lady who sold a piece of art that had been, I guess, I disappeared, right, Justine?
Yeah.
And nobody could find it, but she claimed to have had it and then sold it to a gallery for a substantial amount of money and had their experts check it out. And then several levels of experts check it out. And she was able to fool them and then continued to sell them artwork over what, the next 3 years or something like that?
Oh yeah, it was a long time. And I think it became like, didn't it become like she turned it into like an actual thing where she did even have people replicating work?
Yep, that was a matter of fact, it was a little old Chinese man who was an incredible artist, and she hired him to paint these things as duplicates and pawn them off as the real things. And
Yeah.
I mean, she multi-million dollar scam, and she ended up getting caught. He kicked rocks and went back to China, and from all we know, he's still doing it today. I don't know, but she, I think, last we discovered, she was a waitress at a diner in Long Island, right?
Yeah, something
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, but was able to pull off a multi-year scheme on, by the way, not just any gallery. This was one of the most prestigious galleries in all of New York that was known for its fine art and fine works and rare pieces and all that stuff. And she was able to pull the wool over their eyes and make a couple of bucks in the process.
That's wild. Yeah, it's hearing like watching the show and then like looking into it after the fact, it is crazy, digging deep into this because if this definitely needs like a biopic or like some sort of documentary because it's not every day that these types of things happen. And like it's neat that you guys kind of touched on it or dug into it, but I feel like there's so much more to the story, like the aftermath and like where does it go from here, who does what. And Justine, with your character, it's such a layered character. Outside of the script, just putting yourself in that type of role, how do you prepare to play someone with so much mystery and emotional weight? I know you have a huge catalog of projects under your belt, but with Helena, it seems like this is such a I don't maybe kudos to Brandon and team, but for writing it. But Justine, I know a lot of this is with you at play.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, a lot of kudos does go to Brandon for writing that depth. Because I true like from acting, your writing, it's all important. I've like learned is that writing is just as important as being a good actor as is the music and the editing and like everything is really important. So, um, Brandon layered this role, and there's a lot of mystery, and there's obviously like a hidden identity that she has. And to be honest, like I called Brandon because I am an insecure person, and I'm saying that out loud just because I feel like vulnerability is, I don't know, it's helpful. Like I appreciate vulnerability in people. So I'm insecure and I called him up and I was like, I don't know if I can even do this like role. And he really pep talked me. And that's also like Brandon's a really good friend and he's an amazing director, but he made me feel super comfortable. And he was like, you can absolutely do this. And made me feel like I could. Like he just like gave me the strength to be able to do it. And then it was almost like I got the permission to be able to really dig deep into that character. And then from there I went into really researching the art world and kind of putting myself into that world and what I like how I could blend Justine with the character. So it was kind of like a marriage between myself and the character and putting myself in the art world and into her shoes and the trauma that she experienced from her earlier years and stuff like that. So I do a combination of that and like I really like improvisational stuff on set, which is really Brandon definitely allows for that. So like doing a lot of homework and then kind of dropping that once you're on set and seeing kind of what happens.
Awesome. Yeah. And Brandon, I kind of want to take this in a different direction with you. Writing, directing, starring in the series, ultimately wearing that many hats, it I'm sure it's a little daunting, kind of like how Justine kind of came to you, you know, looking for assistance. And in all reality, when you wear that many hats, sometimes you have to just look in the mirror and tell yourself you have to do it. Was there any challenge or part of one of those roles that was more challenging than the other?
Well, I think ultimately, when you direct something, you're responsible. I mean, writing is one thing, because that's where the kind of the foundation comes from, and then making sure that, like for example, when Justine talks about, writing all the layers and all the depth and all that stuff for her. For me as a writer, it was easy to do for her because I knew what her capabilities were, even though she may not have known at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a big job of self-discovery for her, and I wanted that. And it was also for me as well, as a director, as a writer, and as somebody who is responsible for bringing these characters to a sense of to life in such a vivid way, the same way I saw them in my head, um, that I wanted to do that for everybody. So when you're dealing with the entire cast and knowing that you have to make these cartoons come to life through them,
Yeah.
that can be a little bit. I mean, on the surface, it could be a little bit of pressure, but for me, I found excitement in it, especially when they found a moment. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, Justine, did I clap and jump up and down and high five. I'm very animated as a director, and when we hit that moment, I get more stoked than just about anybody, and I like to celebrate those moments. So for me, it is a little nerve-wracking initially, and just like Justine said, I also get self-conscious, and there are
Mhm.
times where I was directing this and I was thinking, you get the whole imposter syndrome. Like, am I pulling this off? Am I doing this right? I mean, what if this is somebody else's money? This is somebody else's life that, I'm tapping into, and they're giving this to me. So there is an element of pressure that comes along with that. But what I try to do is turn that view of pressure into a view of opportunity for myself and for everybody that's involved.
Yeah, kind of bouncing off that too. You do have a strong comedy and improv background, and like it's kind of interesting to not only see you try on these different hats, but to see you in this role. Ponce, magnetic, terrifying. What was your process in crafting this villain that's both charming and dangerous? Because we were talking a little bit before, and ultimately you like really dug into this character, and it's not your typical role, but it seemed, as the show goes on, that this is almost like the role you were always meant to play.
Oh, that makes me feel really good. I really appreciate that. So comedy, they say that comedy is hard and drama is easy. Anybody can pull off drama, but not everybody can pull off comedy. If that was the case, we'd all be laughing ourselves silly every day, right? But understand that with comedy, anytime you see somebody that's got a good comedy depth, Robin Williams, Jim Carrey. I mean, I could go on a laundry list of people that are funny that we know as funny people. There's a darkness, man. There's history. These are broken people who oftentimes use comedy as a coping mechanism, as an escape, and as a way to feel accepted when they don't feel like they are or should be accepted. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to do is infuse those things because it's humanity. I mean, um, I wanted to explore the darkness, but also kind of keep my toe safely in that comedy water to where I could be likable and hated at the same time. It's the same reason you love and hate Darth Vader. He's got this power, but he's also got this. There's something in there, and you know where he came from, and so you want to like him. And you're like, come on, buddy, you got all this power, be a good guy. So it's a delicate balance, but at the same time, I feel like if you embrace the dark and the light at the same time, you can come up with the perfect yin yang character.
Yeah, Helena's dynamic with Ponce, it's what I would probably say electric is probably where I'd go with that. What was it like for you, Justine, working opposite of Brandon, especially considering both his role as the actor or co-star and the director?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because it was actually a lot of fun to work off
Mhm.
of you, Brandon. It was like, yeah, it was like a tennis match. You're you're so generous as an actor, and I really appreciate that. Like you have so much, and there were times I love the dynamic, the comedic like villain. Like it's so rare to like, yeah, it does happen, but it's so rare, and I feel like it's so interesting too, and it almost does make me hate you more as Ramir, and not you, Brandon, but like
I
as
know.
the character, and it worked so well because I was like, this guy is literally, he thinks this is all a joke. Like to him, this is funny, and it made it even more infuriating. It gave me more fuel because if you watch the series, you'll find out like what the background of our story is, and our history runs pretty deep, so it gave me a lot of fuel, and he put that on my fire, to basically come around, and there's a big twist at the end, so I'm not gonna give it away though. But yeah, it was so fun to work with you, Brandon.
And Justine, I also want to mention, like, you come from a background in live theater and stage, which is not a world that I'm really familiar with, but I think that that's kind of an interesting dynamic to bring to a project like this. how did your performance and training, help you approach this specific role, for the screen?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've trained like pretty much every single technique, and some have worked and some haven't, but like I've kind of like, especially for that, like I've blended a lot. Like I do almost like I'm like obsessive when it comes to like analyzing like characters and really going in and doing like the research, and sometimes to the point where it makes me too heady. So there's like that balance of, like I said, bringing the improvisation onto set, but I do think it's really important to really kind of get to know the character almost at like an like almost at a spiritual level. For me, it becomes very much like the character kind of like infuses itself in me, and sometimes to the point where it actually becomes scary because I'll get visions, like, which I did, and I'll be like driving or something or in the middle of doing something, and these characters visions come to my head, and it kind of is disturbing. Luckily it's not too much of a disturbing character where I went crazy, but yeah, so I kind of just have learned how to do that type of homework and then play around and not get stuck in anything. I think that's what my goal is, even as an actor, is to not ever get stuck in one way of doing things. And that's taken a long time too to learn. And I really was able to explore that with this character. And Brandon allowed me that freedom as a director to kind of be able to explore different things.
Awesome. Yeah. And Brandon, as someone who's worked with, on national commercials, improv, and now, prestige TV, what's your creative philosophy kind of between or with jumping between genres? Because you are the comedy guy, but is that daunting at all? Is that difficult to kind of go from, let's say something like very improv heavy to something like this?
Well, I mean, that's just the thing is for me, I think that you have to live a moment to moment to moment to moment. And that's it's the same thing you do in life. I mean, you go throughout your day. If you planned everything you were going to say during the course of a day, you'd be locked up. You'd be locked away because you'd be saying exactly what you plan to say, when and to who and where and what. So you improvise all the time, whether you realize it or not. So improvisation is an absolute necessity when it comes to acting, whether you're doing it comedically or dramatically, or they want you to live in the script, or they want you to live free and give you options to play around with the dialogue a little bit. I even in energy is improvisation. I mean, you can if you got somebody. Okay, so when I worked with Robin Williams, Fred Savage was very much about he directed the episode I did, and he was very much about staying on book. And there are a lot of directors that are very much staying on line for line for line for line for line. Give me the line. Just because you have to stay on the line doesn't mean you can't switch and change and play with that. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I owned an acting studio, I would teach my actors. I said, "You bring me the most dark, disturbing, upsetting dialogue you can find, and I'll turn it into a comedy in one take." And vice versa. Give me the funniest thing that you think you've ever read or looked at, and I'll make that the darkest piece of writing that you would ever think. And it's all about living in that moment. So I think, I think maybe to answer your question, the shift between comedy and drama or dark or whatever is kind of the same shift, and it's being just ever present in the moment that you're in right then, because the truth is the truth is the truth, whether you're being funny or whether you're being dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with this show, I mean, like to me, it's a very bold like way of telling this story. And I think one of the hardest things from my perspective that I would encounter would be getting that tone just right, because it does seem like you guys did a really good job, at least from the viewer's perspective, of balancing that glamour with grit. And I know that that's not always easy. Is there anything, obviously you guys have a ensemble cast, you have a great crew, but is there anything that kind of stands out as far as like how you guys were able to achieve that voice? Because to me, that's probably going to be one of the hardest feats in delivering something like this.
I mean, for me in the writing process, it was about diversity in characters, diversity in people, um, because there are so many different types of people or schools of thought that you don't think about every day and you don't necessarily encounter every day, or some people ever in a lifetime. So I wanted to bring all of those voices together to make one really nice chorus. And so you've got, you infuse the darkness and the comedy in me. You infuse the vulnerability and weakness with the power that Justine had.
Mhm.
And then you look like you talk about Steven and Jensen. These guys, just the comedy dynamic that was ever present with them, and again, riding the roller coaster of those serious moments and those silly, wacky moments when he's sneaking ice cream out of the apartment, and the same thing with Buddha. Buddha is just such a big, strong presence, and Sonia the same thing. So to give them some levity and to give them some light, I think just putting all that into play creates the. I mean, it's to me, it's cinematic gumbo.
Mhm.
All the elements are there to create this stew that when you look at it and go, I don't know if that would be good with this and this, but when you put it all together, oh man, is it just it just works.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I like the way I usually say stew, but gumbo does seem very appropriate with this film.
Well,
Uh,
I'm craving Cajun food. That's why I
Oh,
said.
there you go. Well, and Justine, Helena has a very personal and intense arc. From presumed death to there's active threats. Was there any part of her journey that resonated with you the most?
Um, yeah, I think overall there's this because that is part of my process is kind of looking at the similarities between me and the character and kind of where I can kind of I mean Brandon knew like you knew my range and stuff like that like you said, and so you knew I feel like you kind of wrote it for me even because it was super easy to connect to. But for me there was this craving she had for freedom, and I think there for me it's similar. Like she was not I don't know if I'm going to give it away, but she did not do what she did for the sake of getting praise or getting being what she actually became, which was basically appraised at whatever she did, which I'm not going to say because that gives it away. But um, and there's that freedom. So she kind of like found a life where she found a semblance of freedom, but even that itself wasn't freeing. So by the end of it, she may or may not have found her freedom because it is a series and there's always a level of it kind of gets cut off. And I feel like I have that experience with life. Like you keep going to the next level of your life, craving like this sense of freedom that you never quite reach. And I feel like at the depth there was that. And I feel like that I definitely related to.
Awesome. Yeah. And let's talk about that. Not necessarily the ending, but like what comes next. With the series finally out on Tubi, what kind of feedback or reactions have stood out to you guys the most, since the release? Because this is a long time coming. This took years to get this out, through COVID. I'm sure it's rewarding in its own sense just to visibly see that it's out there. But have you guys been dealing with feedback? Like, has it been positive for the most part? Because that's all I see when I look it up.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. It's been received really well, and all the comments that I'm getting, they speak to the story, which makes me feel good. Because again, let me just say this: I've never written a drama before. I've written comedies. I've written more comedies than I've probably said words in my own life. But I've never written a drama before. So the feedback that I'm getting for the writing and the story is really encouraging to me. And whenever they get praise, anybody in the cast, whenever they get praise, I take that daddy pride. Like I'm super proud of them. And I told them at the very beginning, look, I want this show to blow up, not necessarily for you to make tons of money, but for you to get the recognition that you all deserve for putting in the work and showing your talents through this. I mean, that's what I want to see. So I would like to see, if nothing ever happens for me again, if the cast could blow up, that would be the perfect scenario for me. And so far, what I've seen and what I've heard, everybody's really enjoying it. And I mean, I think are we almost at a perfect score on IMDb?
Yep.
or do we? I know it was
It's
pretty
it's
close.
it's damn near perfect last time I looked. And yeah, everywhere that like there's a rating system for it, it's either at the top or like right below the top, which is you never know. Some of these wahoos, they get on there and just pick a star. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And I mean, it definitely reflects the quality that you get with something like this. And Justine, was there anything you wanted to say about the reactions or feedback that stood out for you?
Yeah, no, I mean it's all good feedback. Like my family's obviously like super proud. You're my stepmom's favorite character. She's like, I love him. But my mom like hates you, but I'm like, that's good because she forgot. She's like, I really forgot. Like this was like super professional and it like she thought she was watching just like a regular show on TV and not watching her kid. So it was, I mean, that's good feedback because that's from someone who literally just watches TV, doesn't know anything about the film industry, doesn't know. So it's kind of good to get that feedback. But yeah, overall, it seems like the comments and everything are really good, which is really, really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
weird too because my son watched it, I think maybe the day it came out, like stayed up till probably 3 in the morning watching the whole thing. And he came downstairs the next morning and he goes, Dad, I finished it. It was so good. And I think my favorite character, he was so funny. And I thought, oh, this is going to be good. A little comment for his dad. He goes, was Steven. I'm like, what? And he goes, no, I mean, you were good. You were good. But he was so funny. Dad, he was so fun. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. He goes, and the way they work together, I'm like, okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Again, like I don't have to have any praise. I want to see them do good. So if my own son says that somebody else was funnier than I was, even though I'm not used to hearing that, uh, that's good. That's really, really good. And it made me super proud for Steven too.
Well,
Yeah.
and it speaks to the writing, the directing, the camaraderie. All of those things do shine through the film or the show. And yeah, so that's the best feedback you can get is from the family because they're if anyone's going to tell you like it is, it's it's them. So, well, other than that, like I kind of wanted to ask too, now that it's been released, do we see a future for Ponce and or maybe even just the Spill Paint universe, either a second season or spin-offs? It's getting good response, and also too with I'm not sure exactly how or what the relationship is with Tubi, but I'm sure when they have a hit on their hands, I'm sure they're curious as to know if you guys want to come back for more.
Well, I mean, I've definitely got. I don't want to, really give a lot away. We would all love to work together again. I would work with these guys today if they
Yeah.
said, "Come on, let's go." All right, let me get in the Jeep. I'm on my way. I would work with them again in a heartbeat. Like we became even those of us that didn't know each other. The ones of it for those that did know each other, our bond got stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and for those that didn't know each other, we got new family members. And I love that, and I want that to happen again and again and again and again. So, have I given some thought to season two? We all have, right? Just
Oh yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
I know what direction I would love to take it. I mean, this business it's a funny business. Sometimes you'll see a show that's a one-hit wonder, and that's all you see of it, and you just want to see more. I mean, I've been involved in shows where we get green light for a second, third, fourth season, and then they just show up and say, "All right, shut it down, you're done." So you never know what's going to happen. But my sincere hope is that we get to do all this again and expand these stories because even though it seems like there's a little bit of a button, nice little bow at the end, there's still a lot that's in play that we could really take advantage of if we had the chance.
Awesome. Yeah. So to wrap up, I kind of want to just give you guys the floor. Is there anything else you want to mention about the show or anything else you guys have going on? Where can people find, support you, those types of things, have at it. But ultimately, great show. And I do hope there is a sequel or, a spinoff or something because I need more. So have at it, guys. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll say this. Away from the primary cast, we had some great support from the kids that played the young Ramirez and the young Buddha and the bullies. And I mean, the kids were just so eager to learn and so hungry and so great on set. And I've stayed in touch with quite a few of them, and a lot of them have, moved on to larger places than with opportunity from where they live. I know a few have gone to Atlanta, and they're starting to get some work over there, and some have made some plans to come to LA and New York and all that. So I just want to give a shout out to the kids and all of our other cast that were a part of the show to help make the thing. I mean, even my buddy Lee, where I beat the crap out of him at the very beginning. I've known Lee for years, and even though we shot that scene quite a while ago, it's nice to see him get on stage and or get his spot or time in the spotlight. But yeah, I just wanted to say, give a little shout out to everybody else who was a part of the show too.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and he's probably got bruises to show for it. But Justine, any final thoughts before we let you go?
Yeah, I agree. Like, everybody was amazing. Obviously, Beth, she's my girlfriend and the producer too, and she worked her ass off trying to get this made. So definitely a shout out to her. And then also, she worked with, you guys both worked like with Christine, and Christine is our editor, and she did not know what she was in for, but she killed it. I think she did an amazing job editing too, because that definitely tells the story. But yeah, our whole cast and crew was amazing, and I'm so thankful to be a part of it. And I hope that it continues. That'd be cool.
Yeah, editors, seem to always kind of get the shaft, unsung heroes of most productions. I've been on sets where they're actually editing the film as they're shooting it, and it's always really cool to see. But anyway, enough about me. Let's wrap it up. Go ahead, Brandon.
Just one more thing. I wanted to give you the initial thanks to Beth thing, just because a little home cooking there. But I got to say that I've been in this business for a very long time, and Beth is one of the hardest working producers that really genuinely cares about putting out the best product, putting together the right people, and making sure that what you see is exactly what she sees, or if not that, better. So I just wanted to tack on to your thing about Beth. She's awesome. I love her to pieces. She's family to me too.
Well, oddly enough, Beth is why we're all here, to be quite honest. She's the one that put this in front of me. And yeah, so thank you, Beth, if you are watching. Appreciate your time, your effort. And to put a little bow on it, as Brandon says, here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing. Brandon, Justine, Beth, you guys are all doing just fine. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for making Spilled Paint the success that it is.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.